Emma's white dress swayed gently as she stood frozen in the narrow aisle of first class, her small hands clutching the straps of her backpack. Her blue eyes shimmered with unshed tears, lips pressed into a thin line, shoulders curling inward like she could make herself invisible. In front of her, the head flight attendant, Nancy Doyle, leaned in, spine rigid, eyes cold, one manicured finger pointing sharply toward the open cabin door. "You'll need to leave the plane," she said, voice low but razor-edged. Around them, passengers stared, the low hum of boarding turning into a heavy, suffocating silence. The air inside the cabin felt too still, like the entire plane was holding its breath. Emma's shoulders curled tighter, the crisp white of her dress glowing against the navy upholstery. My own seatbelt lay unbuckled behind me, my mind already mapping every possible way to shield her from the dozen strangers staring at us. "No one's in trouble," I told her softly, keeping my eyes on Nancy Doyle's unreadable expression. The aisle felt narrower now, the air thinner, as if the circulation had been turned down just to make us strain. Across from us, a silver-haired woman in sturdy shoes and a leather handbag worn smooth by years of travel took one deliberate step forward. "That child has done nothing wrong," she whispered. Later, I would know her name, Edith Cole, but now she was just a stranger with a voice that anchored me. "Sir, step back," Nancy said, chin lifted in quiet authority. "There is a flag on this child's record." Her manicured fingers still pointed toward the open cabin door. "Standard procedure," she added, as though that made it less absurd. I slid our boarding passes forward along with Emma's passport, my driver's license, and a notarized guardianship letter I carried for every trip. A man in 14D, one I remembered from the gate, sat watching with theatrical concern. He had looked at Emma before, eyes narrowing as if fitting her into some private theory. Now he leaned into the aisle and raised his voice just enough to draw nearby ears. "Just trying to help," he said. "Jenna," I asked the younger flight attendant hovering nearby, "is there any higher authority on board?" "I am the authority," Nancy cut in before she could answer. The overhead lights brightened a shade, the fans whispered over our heads. The strap of Emma's unicorn keychain backpack sliced diagonally across her chest, the little plastic creature grinning as if oblivious. "Daddy," she whispered, "am I breaking a rule?" Nancy tapped her radio, speaking in clipped syllables like a training video. As she talked, I matched Emma's breathing, 4 in, 4 out, until her tiny shoulders eased fractionally. Edith sat down opposite us, gaze sharp behind bifocals. "I'll be right here," she said to no one in particular, a seatbelt click punctuating her point. The jet bridge still clamped to the aircraft like a bent gray elbow. Boarding slowed to a trickle. Passengers craned necks for a better view. "The captain says we resolve this before pushback," Nancy announced. "Security is on the way." The words chilled the aisle. Emma swiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. I kept my anger folded away like a pocket square. "If your concern is authenticity, Nancy, we can settle that here without parading her through the cabin." She didn't move. Policy requires removal when a minor is flagged. Policy also requires assessment. Marcus, a senior attendant from the back, murmured. Jenna's device chimed. Her face paled. "New timestamp, 3 minutes, now 2. Someone is still updating the flag." I caught Marcus's eye. He gave the faintest shake of his head, an unspoken warning. This wasn't just a clerical hiccup. Someone was pushing buttons in real time, and they wanted Emma off this plane before the doors sealed. "Sir," Nancy said, voice cooler now, "we'll have to ask you both to disembark until this can be cleared with operations." "And who decided that?" I asked. Her pause was just long enough to confirm what I suspected. This was coming from higher than the cockpit. "Captain's orders," she said finally, but the flicker in her gaze told another story. I stepped closer to Emma, feeling her small hand find mine. The captain hadn't said a word to me. The order had been dropped into the crew channel like a stone into still water, ripples carrying it without question. Overhead, the announcement tone chimed. A practiced voice requested all passengers remain seated while an issue regarding a minor passenger was addressed before departure. A few heads turned away in discomfort. More turned toward us. A mother 2 rows back pulled her own daughter closer, eyes darting between Emma's pale face and Nancy's unyielding stance. "That's enough," Edith said sharply, her voice cutting through the hush. "She's with her father. I saw them check in together." Nancy didn't flinch. "Ma'am, please remain seated." The radio on her hip crackled again. She tilted her head to listen, then keyed the mic. "Copy. Understood." Her eyes met mine. "Security will be here in under a minute." I glanced at the boarding display still lit on Jenna's handheld. The flag code, Umner Unauth, glared red. Unauthorized, unaccompanied minor. Impossible. Emma's ticket had been linked to mine from the moment of booking, except that the flag had been added 3 minutes ago, which meant someone, somewhere, had reached into the airline system and switched her from accompanied to unauthorized. Not a mistake, a deliberate act. I smiled without warmth. Then I'll be making a call of my own. Pulling my phone from my jacket pocket, I scrolled to a contact labeled simply AF. One ring was all it took. I didn't speak when the line clicked. I didn't need to. After a heartbeat of silence, I ended the call. Nancy's gaze tightened. She didn't know what I'd done, only that I'd done something. Outside the open door, the faint hum of the terminal was suddenly drowned by the heavier tread of approaching footsteps. Security was almost here. I squeezed Emma's hand. "Stay right here with me, kiddo." She nodded, lower lip trembling but eyes locked on mine. And then the PA crackled again, not from the terminal but from the flight deck. The captain's voice, level but edged, requested the immediate presence of the lead flight attendant up front. Nancy hesitated, then stepped away toward the cockpit. Jenna leaned in, her voice low. "Whatever you just did, it's working." I said nothing, because the truth was, it had only just begun. The aisle was still tense when Nancy returned from the cockpit, her jaw set like stone. She motioned toward the galley. "Sir, step this way, please. Bring the child." Emma's hand stayed in mine. The warmth of her palm a small anchor in the swell of noise and eyes around us. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. A fight here would give whoever was behind this exactly what they wanted. An excuse to escalate. The galley smelled faintly of coffee grounds and citrus wipes. A narrow counter separated us from the bustle of boarding still trickling in. Nancy gestured to a slim tablet on the counter. "Boarding pass, an identification for both of you." I slid the set forward. My boarding pass, Emma's, her passport, my driver's license, and the notarized guardianship letter again. Jenna, the younger attendant, stepped forward to scan them. Her brows knit, then eased. "They match," she said quietly. Nancy didn't acknowledge her. Instead, she tapped a few commands into the airline's internal app. The screen angled away from me. A shrill chime cut through the galley hum. Jenna's head jerked toward her own handheld device. "It just flagged again." Nancy angled the tablet so we could all see. A new banner pulsed red across Emma's profile. Guardian mismatch. Beneath it, a thumbnail image. Emma, in the very same white dress she was wearing now, standing in front of what looked like a departure gate. The timestamp was from less than an hour ago. Emma's fingers tightened around mine. "Daddy, that's me," she whispered, her voice a thread. "Yes, sweetheart, it is." I studied the image. It wasn't from my phone, nor from any airport photographer. The perspective was low, angled slightly up. Someone had taken it in passing, likely without her noticing. Jenna shook her head. "This isn't possible. That photo wasn't in the file during check-in. I would have seen it." "Which means someone added it," I said, keeping my tone level. "Recently, very recently." Nancy's lips pressed thin. "The system updates in real time from our operations center. If they say there's a mismatch, we have to act on it." I met her gaze evenly. And if the operations center is being fed doctored information? Her eyes flickered, whether from doubt or irritation I couldn't tell. Sir, this isn't the place for It's exactly the place, I said, still without raising my voice. Because you're about to walk my daughter back down that jet bridge based on a picture someone slipped into her file minutes ago. Emma's breath hitched. I crouched slightly, bringing my face level with hers. You're okay. We're okay. I smoothed a loose strand of hair behind her ear, ignoring the way Nancy shifted impatiently beside us. Daddy, why would someone put my picture there? I hesitated, choosing my words. Sometimes people make mistakes, and sometimes they do things on purpose that aren't fair, but it's my job to make sure that doesn't hurt you. Behind me, the galley curtain swished as another crew member entered. Marcus, the senior attendant from earlier. He glanced at the screen, frowned, then looked at me. This photo's from inside the terminal. Someone with badge access pulled it from security feed. Jenna's mouth fell open. That's not standard procedure. Not even close, Marcus agreed. And whoever did it overrode the original Guardian match. This isn't a routine mismatch flag. This was injected. Nancy crossed her arms. Speculation. We have a chain of command, Marcus. And we have eyes, he replied flatly. I straightened, feeling the slow burn of something heavier than anger. Resolve, deliberate and cold. Nancy, if your concern is safety, you'll let me resolve this through the proper channels. The ones above operations. Her brows lifted. Above operations? I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket, my thumb already finding the contact labeled AF. The initials alone were enough to tighten certain throats in the industry. I didn't need to look at the name to feel the weight of it. The FAA's Deputy Director of Safety Oversight. Emma's eyes tracked the motion, curious. Who's that, Daddy? Someone who helps keep airplanes safe, I said. Nancy's gaze flicked between my phone and my face. Sir, if you just cooperate, I am cooperating, I interrupted, still calm. Just not in the way whoever is behind this wants me to. Her mouth thinned again, but she didn't stop me as I tapped the call button. The line connected on the first ring. I didn't speak, letting the faint background hum on the other end confirm the connection. 3 seconds. 4. Then I ended the call. Nancy frowned. What was that supposed to do? Jenna, however, seemed to understand. She glanced at the cockpit door. Captain's going to get pinged in about 30 seconds. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. And operations is going to have to explain why a verified Guardian match was manually flipped twice in under 10 minutes. I rested a hand on Emma's shoulder. We're not leaving this plane, sweetheart. Her lower lip trembled once, then steadied. She nodded, her grip on my fingers firm. The PA tone chimed overhead. Lead flight attendant to the cockpit, please. Nancy's radio crackled simultaneously. She hesitated, then stepped toward the forward door, tossing a clipped "Stay here" over her shoulder. As the curtain fell closed behind her, Jenna leaned in. Sir, I don't know what you just set in motion, but I'm with you. This isn't right. Marcus nodded. We'll keep eyes on the aisle. No one takes her out of this cabin without your say-so. I inclined my head in thanks, though my attention was already shifting to the faint vibration of my phone, a text from a number I didn't have to read to recognize. AF. Saw the flag? Who's pulling strings? I typed back 2 words. Working on it. Emma tilted her head. What now? I gave her a faint smile. Now, we wait for the right people to notice the wrong thing. Somewhere behind the locked cockpit door. The first ripple of that call was about to break the surface. From the galley, I could see the man in 14D clearly now. Middle-aged, salt and pepper hair clipped too short to be fashionable. A pair of reading glasses perched low on his nose. He was holding his phone at a careful angle, the camera lens tilted toward us. Not obvious enough to get called out, but obvious to anyone looking for it. When his gaze flicked up and caught mine, he didn't flinch, just curled his hand to shield the phone a bit more, as though that made it invisible. His lips moved, barely, and I caught the words as he leaned toward the woman beside him. Check the kid. Emma shifted closer to me, sensing my attention had narrowed. "What's wrong?" she asked under her breath. "Nothing you need to worry about," I said, though my pulse had picked up. I turned to Jenna. "I want to speak to the captain, now." Jenna hesitated, glancing toward the forward door. Before she could answer, Nancy reappeared, sliding the curtain aside with just enough force to make it swish like a reprimand. "Sir, the captain is aware of the situation. He's handling it through the proper channels." "I'm aware of the situation too," I replied evenly. "I'd prefer to speak with him directly." "That's not how the chain of command works," she said. "We follow protocol." "Protocol," I repeated, the word tasting like dust. From behind me came the creak of a seat as someone stood. An elderly man in a charcoal blazer stepped into the aisle, one hand gripping the headrest for balance. His face was lined but steady, his voice carrying just enough to reach the row ahead. "My name is Franklin Moore," he announced. "I'm a retired attorney. I watch this gentleman and his daughter check in together at the gate, present their IDs, and have their boarding passes scanned. She belongs here." A murmur rippled through the nearby rows. Nancy's expression hardened. "Sir, please sit down. You are not authorized to intervene in crew procedures." "I'm authorized to speak the truth," Moore said, but he sank back into his seat under her unwavering stare. Emma's hand found mine again. "He's trying to help us," she whispered. "Yes," I said quietly. "He is." I stepped forward, meeting Nancy's gaze head on. "If your chain of command prevents the captain from hearing directly from the passenger in question, perhaps your chain is broken." Her nostrils flared, but before she could respond, the overhead chime sounded. The jet bridge door clanged faintly in the distance, and the hiss of the air system shifted as ground crew began preparing for departure. Nancy's radio crackled. She pressed it to her ear, nodded once, then lowered it. "Operations says the matter is still under review. We will hold position until they give the all clear." In the middle of the cabin, 14D kept his phone low, his thumb moving across the screen. Sending the video, uploading it, or feeding it to whoever was manipulating Emma's file. I motioned to Marcus, who had been hovering near row 3. "Watch him," I said quietly, inclining my head toward 14D. Marcus followed my gaze, his jaw tightening. "Got it." Nancy crossed her arms. "Sir, you need to remain in your seat until we resolve this." "Then bring the captain here," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "I'll relay your request." The cabin noise seemed to shrink to a faint background hum as I guided Emma back toward our seats. Edith Cole leaned into the aisle as we passed. "They can't just take her off like luggage," she murmured. "They can try," I said, "but it won't go the way they think." Emma slid into her seat by the window, pressing her palm against the glass. Outside, the last few bags were being loaded into the cargo hold. I stayed in the aisle, watching as Nancy moved forward, her shoulders squared. 3 minutes later, the cabin door thudded closed. The latching mechanism engaged with a finality that made Emma glance at me. "Does that mean we're going?" she asked. "Not yet," I said, though part of me had hoped the same. The PA tone chimed again, and the captain's voice came over the speakers. Calm, practiced, with that slight drawl pilots seem to acquire over decades in the air. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Harris. We're experiencing a brief delay due to procedures regarding an unaccompanied minor. We appreciate your patience and cooperation." I felt Emma stiffen. "That's me, isn't it?" "It's what they're calling you," I said. "But it's not true." She nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to her lap. Across the aisle, Franklin Moore met my eyes, giving a small nod of solidarity. Behind him, 14D tapped his phone again, the ghost of a smirk on his lips. The engine stayed silent. The air vents whispered. And somewhere beyond the cockpit door, a clock was ticking on whoever thought they could rewrite my daughter's story before we ever left the ground. The cabin felt smaller than it had minutes ago, the air thick with the weight of waiting. Emma sat by the window, tracing invisible lines on the glass with her fingertip, her small frame taut with the strain of not knowing. I stood, ignoring Nancy's tightening stare, and stepped toward the forward bulkhead where a narrow sliver of window let in the cold afternoon light from the jet bridge. I pressed my phone to my ear. When AF answered, I didn't waste a word. Just said, "Flight 4821, Minneapolis to LaGuardia." Then I disconnected. It was enough. Behind the cockpit door, a muted chime rang almost immediately, followed by the faint murmur of voices. Captain Michael Harris's tone was low, but clipped. A second later, another chime. Operations. I stayed by the bulkhead, watching Emma's reflection in the glass, her blonde hair haloed in the light. She glanced at me, brows pinched, and I gave her a small smile I hoped looked more confident than I felt. The third chime hit harder, a sharper alert that pulled Michael's attention from his instruments to the slim iPad mounted beside his seat. I couldn't see the screen from here, but I could imagine the display. My name, my company's logo, and the current status of our contract, pending final signature, worth enough to make any airline executive think twice. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Nancy watching me, her jaw tight. She didn't know exactly what had just happened, but she could feel the shift. The balance in the room was tilting, and she didn't like it. The cockpit door cracked open. Michael stepped out, his cap tilted slightly back, beads of perspiration glistening along his hairline. He was a man used to control, of machines, of crews, of passengers, but his gaze carried a new calculation. "Mr. Carter," he said evenly, "I'd like you and your daughter to return to your seats for the time being." "That was the plan," I replied, matching his tone. He nodded once, then glanced past me toward Nancy. "Lead. A word?" They stepped aside, speaking in low voices. I caught fragments. "Verification complete. Flag. Anomalies. Operations override." Before Nancy's eyes snapped to me. She bit her lower lip, then turned slightly, her hand shielding her phone as she dialed. I didn't need to hear the name to know who she was calling. Victor Hale, Director of Route Operations. The man whose signature had the power to greenlight or kill the safety upgrade deal my company had spent 2 years developing. Emma had swiveled in her seat to watch us. "Daddy, are we okay now?" she asked softly. I walked back to her row, resting a hand on the seat back. "Better than before," I said. "Not done yet." Across the aisle, Franklin Moore leaned forward. "That was a call worth making," he murmured. I gave him the ghost of a smile. "We'll see." In the forward galley, Nancy's voice was low but urgent into her phone. She turned slightly away, but every few seconds her gaze cut toward me like she was checking to see if I was listening. I didn't need to. Her posture said enough. Defensive, cornered, but still searching for a way to win this round. Michael returned to the cockpit, closing the door with a firm click. Moments later, the PA system chimed again. "Cabin crew, prepare for departure. We expect a short delay before pushback due to ongoing coordination with operations. Thank you for your patience." The phrasing was deliberate. No mention of minors, no coded hints about guardianship. Just coordination. A neutral word for a situation that had started to bleed red in the system minutes earlier. I slid into the seat beside Emma, fastening my belt. She looked at me with wide blue eyes. "That man in the hat, he's the pilot, right?" "Yes." "Why was he sweating?" I chuckled softly. "Because sometimes grown-ups get handed a problem they didn't expect." Her lips twitched like she wanted to smile, but wasn't ready to yet. The hum of air conditioning filled the pause, a quiet counterpoint to the muted chatter further back in the cabin. I could feel eyes on us, passengers wondering why the temperature in first class had shifted, why the crew's movements had lost their earlier certainty. Nancy ended her call, sliding the phone into her pocket, and began checking the overhead bins with more force than necessary. As she reached our row, she paused just long enough to meet my eyes. No words, just the faint narrowing of her gaze before she moved on. Emma watched her go. "She doesn't like us," she said simply. "She doesn't have to," I answered. "She just has to do the right thing." From the back of the cabin, Marcus caught my eye and gave a slight nod. Whatever was happening in the shadows, I wasn't standing alone in the light. From my seat, I could hear the faint metallic click of the cockpit door unlatching again. Michael stepped out, his expression measured, but his eyes, those told the story. The edges of control were fraying. He stopped at my row. "Mr. Carter, I believe we have the matter in hand now. The latest verification came through. We'll proceed as planned." Emma's shoulders eased a little at that. But before relief could settle, Jenna appeared from the forward galley, her face pale. She leaned toward me, voice barely audible. "The flag on the app, it's changing in real time. Someone's still in there, flipping it back and forth, like they're playing." My jaw tightened. "Then we need to see the access log." Michael's head turned sharply toward her. "That's enough, Jenna." "No," I said. "She's right. Let me see the log of who's been in Emma's file in the last 30 minutes. "That's not possible," Michael said, his voice carrying that practiced authority pilots use when they want to end a conversation. "Only our IT department can pull that, and it's not something we access mid-flight." "Then call them," I replied. His eyes narrowed slightly. "This isn't a technical seminar, Mr. Carter. It's a boarding issue, and I've addressed it." I could almost feel Jenna's frustration radiating beside me, but she didn't speak again. She knew the hierarchy as well as I did. Once the captain shuts a door in your face, you're meant to stay outside. Michael started to turn back toward the cockpit when a faint buzz echoed from his hip. He pulled a small crew phone from his pocket, glancing at the message. His jaw worked once before he slid it back. "What was that?" I asked. "Nothing that concerns you." But he didn't meet my eyes when he said it. It took less than a minute to find out anyway. Marcus emerged from the aft galley and crossed to Jenna, murmuring something in her ear. She looked at me, then away quickly, but not before I saw the flicker of concern. I leaned forward. "What is it?" Jenna hesitated, then whispered, "PR sent a note to the captain. If there's disruption in the cabin, he should offer you and your daughter a voluntary rebooking." Their words, not mine. "It's a way to make it go away quietly." There it was. Not an accident, not even purely an operations call. A calculated attempt to turn this into a passenger conduct issue, to flip the story before it ever left the ground. If we stepped off voluntarily, there'd be no incident report, no proof of the manufactured flags, no record of who had been trying to erase Emma from the manifest. Michael lingered at the cockpit door for a moment, his hand resting on the handle. I wondered if he was weighing his options, or simply deciding how best to follow orders. Nancy emerged from the forward galley holding a sheet of paper, freshly printed from the slim crew printer. She walked the aisle with the poise of someone delivering a dinner menu, stopping at our row. "Mr. Carter," she began, her voice smooth. "In light of the inconvenience and the current review of documentation, we can offer you and your daughter a complimentary rebooking on the next available flight. First class, of course." She bent slightly, placing the page on Emma's lowered tray table. "Voluntary change of travel. Passenger initiated." The words glared up from the paper in bold black type. Emma glanced from the page to me, her eyes clouded with confusion. "Does that mean we can't go now?" Nancy smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It just means you'd be on a later flight, sweetheart. No trouble at all." I looked at Nancy. "And if we decline?" Her expression stayed neutral, but her answer was clipped. "Then we proceed with protocol, which could take some time." I tapped the corner of the page with one finger. "This says passenger initiated. If we sign this, it will be as if we asked to be removed." "That's the standard form," she replied. I leaned back, meeting her gaze without blinking. "No." Her smile tightened. "Sir, I urge you to consider—" "Emma," I said, turning to my daughter, "fold that paper in half and hand it back, please." She did, her small fingers creasing the page with deliberate care, before holding it out to Nancy. Nancy's eyes flickered. Irritation, maybe, or the first trace of doubt. She took the paper without a word and straightened, turning away. But as she walked back toward the galley, I saw her glance at the phone in her other hand, thumb moving quickly. Whatever this game was, it wasn't over. Emma leaned closer. Why did she want me to sign it? Because sometimes, if you can't win the truth, you try to rewrite it, I said. We're not letting that happen. In the galley, the faint whir of the printer started again. The paper in Nancy's hand disappeared into the forward galley, but the taste of the offer lingered like something bitter on my tongue. Emma was quiet beside me, her gaze fixed out the window, watching a baggage cart trundle past. I could feel the thin thread of hope we'd built over the last half hour starting to fray again. The cabin had fallen into that unnatural hush that means everyone is listening without looking. Conversations were a little too quiet. Magazine pages turned a little too deliberately. Even the sound of overhead bins latching seemed more pointed. And then Edith Cole's voice broke through it all. "Enough of this," she said, standing halfway into the aisle. Her voice was stronger than I'd expected. The kind of voice that had probably cut through a noisy classroom for decades. "That child has done nothing wrong. You're treating her like she's stolen something." Every head within 6 rows turned toward us. Edith's chin lifted. "If anyone here has a phone, and I know you do, you should be recording this. People need to see how this airline treats a little girl." It was like a match struck in dry tinder. Passengers reached into seat pockets, handbags, jacket interiors. Screens lit up, cameras tilted toward Emma and me. I saw Marcus in the back, phone angled low, his expression unreadable but his eyes alert. Nancy emerged from the galley, posture stiff. "Ma'am, please sit down and refrain from—" "I will not sit down," Edith said, her voice rising. "I've watched you circle them like wolves since we boarded. You flagged her, and I saw you speak to that man in 14D before you ever let them on the plane." That last sentence hung in the air like a dropped weight. I glanced down the aisle. 14D had frozen, his phone halfway to his ear. He lowered it slowly, eyes darting toward Nancy. Nancy's gaze flicked that way too, then back to Edith. "Please return to your seat. This is a safety matter." "This is a decency matter," Edith shot back. Beside me, Emma whispered, "Daddy, everyone's looking." "It's okay," I told her softly. "Let them." A man across the aisle began live streaming, his voice narrating over the hum of the cabin fans. "Flight 4821 to LaGuardia. Little girl flagged as an unaccompanied minor even though her dad's right here with her. Passengers are speaking up. Hashtag Skyline Bias." He wasn't the only one. I caught snatches of commentary as more passengers began uploading #Skyline Bias, #She Belongs. The feed of light from phone screens spread like a constellation in the dimmed cabin. Nancy's radio crackled. She turned away, pressing it to her ear, speaking too low for me to hear. The smell of brewing coffee drifted from the galley, absurdly domestic in the middle of this slow burn standoff. Then my phone vibrated in my jacket pocket. Unknown number. I answered without speaking. A man's voice, low and distorted, came through. "Check your messages. Thought you'd want to see this." The line went dead before I could respond. I opened the messaging app. A single video file sat at the top. No name, just a thumbnail image of the gate area. I tapped it. The video was grainy, the frame fixed high. Security camera footage from the concourse. The timestamp was 20 minutes before boarding. In the lower left corner, the gate desk was visible, the agents busy scanning tickets. And there, just off to the side, Nancy Doyle stood in her Navy uniform, speaking to a man in a dark jacket and jeans. Even in the low resolution, I recognized the profile, 14D. They talked for several seconds. She glanced toward the boarding lane, then back to him. He gestured toward the jet bridge, said something, and she nodded. They leaned closer, her hand cupped briefly near her mouth as if to shield the words. The clip ended abruptly. My grip on the phone tightened. Whoever had sent it knew exactly what this was. Not speculation, not suspicion, but visual proof of collusion before the flag had ever appeared. I saved the file to a secure folder, then queued it for encrypted forwarding. The cockpit needed to see this. I rose, stepping into the aisle. Nancy's head turned instantly. "Sir, please remain seated." "I have information for the captain," I said. "Protocol doesn't cover this," I cut in. My voice still calm, but pitched to Carrie. "Unless your protocol includes ignoring evidence of crew collusion?" A ripple moved through the passengers. Phones angled higher, catching both of us in frame. Nancy's lips pressed together, but she didn't block my way as I moved toward the front. Jenna appeared from the forward galley, her eyes flicking to my phone. "Is that?" "Gate footage," I confirmed. "Her and 14D. She swallowed once, then opened the cockpit door without another word. Michael Harris turned in his seat as I stepped inside the threshold. I handed him the phone, the video already queued. He watched in silence, his face darkening by degrees. When it ended, he set the phone down on his knee, his fingers steepled. "When was this taken?" 20 minutes before boarding," I said. "From a security camera at gate C23, sent to me anonymously." He exhaled slowly through his nose. "This changes things." "It should," I replied. Behind me, Jenna shifted her weight, glancing toward the cabin where the soft chorus of live stream narrations continued. The hashtags were already bouncing between feeds. Skyline bias climbing, #she belongs right behind it. Michael handed back the phone. "I'll deal with this. Return to your seat." I met his gaze. "Make sure you do." Back in my row, Emma looked up at me, her small hand reaching instinctively for mine. "Did you show him?" "Yes," I said, squeezing her fingers gently. "He saw it." She nodded, her trust so complete it ached. 2 rows back, Edith caught my eye and mouthed, "Good." But in the corner of my vision, I saw Nancy at the interphone, her posture rigid, her lips moving fast. She wasn't finished. And now, she knew I had the kind of proof that didn't disappear with a keystroke. Michael's voice came over the PA moments later, calm and clipped. "Cabin crew, prepare for further instructions." Something was about to shift again. The PA tone chimed again, sharper this time. Every conversation stilled, every phone camera tilted upward. Michael's voice came over the speakers, calm, but with an undercurrent of steel. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We have reviewed new information regarding the status of one of our passengers. I want to clarify. Miss Emma Carter is traveling with her father, Mr. Daniel Carter, as booked and verified. Any previous discrepancies were the result of incorrect data. I personally apologize to them and to you for the delay." Emma blinked, processing the words. "He said my name," she whispered, almost shyly. Michael continued, "We will be initiating an internal investigation into how these errors occurred. In the meantime, I invite everyone to take their seats so we can prepare for departure." It was a small thing, an announcement, a correction, but in the heavy air of the cabin, it felt seismic. A ripple of murmurs swept through the rows, and somewhere toward the back, someone clapped. The sound caught on like a spark, others joining until the applause filled the narrow space. Emma shrank a little into her seat, cheeks pink, but her eyes were bright. I squeezed her hand once, a silent, "You're safe now." The applause was still fading when Nancy stepped out from the forward galley, her chin high. "Captain," she said, loud enough for half the cabin to hear, "with all due respect, I followed established protocol. My actions were in line with training and company policy." Her gaze swept the passengers, as if seeking allies. "These procedures exist for safety. If there are flaws in the system, that's beyond my scope." In row 14, the man in 14D shifted in his seat. The color had drained from his face, leaving him pale under the overhead lights. His phone lay dark in his lap now, as if any recording would only incriminate him. Michael didn't rise to Nancy's bait over the PA. Instead, he keyed the interphone, his voice audible only to her. Whatever he said made her lips compress into a thin, bloodless line before she turned away. That's when my phone buzzed again. This time, the sender's name was visible. Someone I knew in an adjacent corner of the aviation world. A single screenshot filled the screen. An internal chat log from the airline's PR channel. Victor Hale. If this incident gains traction, shift narrative to passenger conduct issue. Emphasize captain offered voluntary rebooking to avoid further disruption. Protect crew safety record at all costs. Below it, a string of thumbs up emojis from various PR team members. There it was, in black and white. The orchestration, the attempt to rewrite reality before it had even finished happening. I forwarded the screenshot to AF with a single note. You'll want to see this. Seconds later, the reply came. Already moving? Michael reappeared from the cockpit, speaking briefly with Marcus and Jenna. His posture was taut, his jaw set. He glanced at me once before keying the PA again. Cabin crew, please prepare for departure. All passengers, fasten your seatbelts. The energy in the cabin had shifted again. The hostility that had crackled around us earlier was gone, replaced by an almost tangible awareness that the tide had turned. Even those who had stayed silent before were now leaning toward us, offering small nods, faint smiles. Nancy moved stiffly through the aisle, checking belts with unnecessary precision. When she reached 14D, she paused, murmured something I couldn't hear. He didn't look up, just gave a curt nod. Emma leaned close to me. Does this mean we're really going now? Yes, I said. And some people are going to have a lot of explaining to do while we're in the air. The engines began their low whine, vibrating faintly through the floor. The cabin lights brightened slightly, a signal of readiness. Then, before we could push back, Michael's voice came again. This time, not the smooth captain's cadence, but a clipped, procedural tone I recognized instantly from my own industry. Per FAA directive, we are entering monitoring status for the duration of this flight. Cabin crew, prepare to log a formal in-flight incident report. A few passengers exchanged confused glances. Most wouldn't know what monitoring status meant. But I did. It meant the FAA was now watching every moment of this flight in real time, from cockpit communications to crew behavior, and that an official record was already being built for post-flight review. Nancy's head turned sharply toward the cockpit, but she said nothing. Marcus and Jenna moved with quiet efficiency, pulling out the slim incident binders from the galley and placing them within reach. Emma frowned. Monitoring? Like they're watching us? In a way, I said. They're watching to make sure no one changes the story again. The nose of the aircraft shifted slightly as the tug connected. The faint clunk of the jet bridge detaching echoed through the forward fuselage. We were finally on the move, but the real journey, the one that had started when Nancy pointed her manicured finger toward the cabin door, was still far from over. Outside, the late afternoon light slanted across the tarmac, painting the wing in gold. Inside, the balance of power had shifted to neutral, for now. But with the FAA already holding the pen on the official record, I knew neutral wouldn't last long. Nancy's polished shoes clicked on the aisle as she returned to the galley, her expression unreadable. In row 14, the man who had been so quick to murmur, "Check the kid," now sat motionless, eyes fixed on the seatback in front of him. I reached for Emma's hand again, feeling her small fingers curl around mine. "We're in the air soon," I told her. She smiled faintly. "Good. I don't like it when the floor doesn't move." The engine spooled higher, the vibrations building, and somewhere above us, unseen but very much present, the FAA was listening. The wheels bumped over a seam in the tarmac as we began taxiing, the muted rumble underfoot marking the first real movement in more than an hour. I could see the reflection of the setting sun along the wing, its trailing edge catching the light like a blade. Emma leaned toward the window, her breath fogging the glass in little bursts. From the corner of my eye, I saw Michael step into the forward galley, the cockpit door sealing behind him. Nancy was there too, her arms crossed, her voice low but edged. I couldn't catch every word, but security risk and media exposure carried easily enough in the cramped space. Marcus, moving up the aisle to collect stray cups, slowed near my row. He bent slightly. "PR just told the captain to divert," he murmured. "They want to land at a smaller field, keep the press away." I didn't have to think long. A diversion now wouldn't cool the fire, it would pour accelerant on it. Every live stream still running in the cabin would turn the change of course into proof of guilt. I rose, catching Michael just as Nancy finished speaking. "Captain," I said quietly but firmly, "you divert this plane. You'll have news helicopters chasing you all the way down. You'll make this 10 times bigger than it is." Michael's gaze shifted between us. "The idea is to protect the operation from further—" "From what? From transparency?" I didn't raise my voice, but I stepped in close enough that only he could hear the rest. "You know what diverting looks like in the public eye? You're not pulling us out of a storm. You're pulling us away from witnesses." His jaw worked. "They're citing security. They're citing optics," I countered. "And the optics will be worse if you land somewhere unexpected with FAA monitoring already in play." Before he could answer, the secure crew phone on his belt buzzed. He unclipped it, read the screen, and something in his expression shifted. Without a word, he passed it to me. The message was brief, from a number I knew well. "AF, do not divert. Maintain original destination. Rapid response team will meet on arrival." Michael reclaimed the phone, exhaling through his nose. "That's direct from FAA." "Then you have cover," I said. Nancy's eyes narrowed. "Cover for what? To parade this circus into LaGuardia with every camera in the city waiting?" Michael turned to her, his voice cool but decisive. "Cover to follow the actual chain of command, Nancy, and as of this moment, that command isn't coming from PR." Her mouth opened, but whatever she was about to say was cut short by the cockpit chime. Michael stepped forward, keying the interphone. "First officer says we're cleared to join the queue. Time to strap in." He looked at me again, the faintest edge of something like respect in his eyes. "Take your seat, Mr. Carter." I did, but my pulse stayed elevated. Beside me, Emma whispered, "What's divert?" "It's when they change where we land," I said. "But we're not doing that now." "Good," she replied. "I like the place we were going." The engines hummed higher as we took our place in line. The cabin lights dimmed to takeoff setting. I felt the subtle shift of weight as we turned onto the runway, the final announcement from Michael's practiced voice urging seatbelts and seatbacks in place. But just as we rolled forward, the PA chimed again, not with the captain's voice, but with that clipped, formal tone of crew procedure. "This is the captain. Effective immediately, Lid Flight Attendant Nancy Doyle is relieved of duty for the remainder of this flight. Cabin duties will be assumed by Senior Attendant Marcus Lee." Gasps and murmurs rose instantly. Edith Cole sat straighter, her eyes locking on mine. In row 14, the man who'd been so confident earlier now shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward Nancy. Nancy froze mid-aisle. For the first time since boarding, her mask cracked. A flicker of disbelief before she composed herself. "On what grounds?" she demanded, though her voice was lower than before. Michael didn't respond over the PA. Instead, Marcus stepped forward from the rear, his expression neutral, but his posture unmistakably authoritative. "I'll take it from here, Nancy." For a moment, I thought she might refuse, but then she gave a sharp nod, handed over her tablet, and walked briskly toward the jump seat at the very back of the cabin. No more instructions. No more eyes scanning Emma like a problem to be solved. Emma leaned toward me, whispering, "Is she in trouble?" "She's out of the game," I said. "That's enough for now." But I knew it wasn't the end. Michael wouldn't have pulled her unless he already had confirmation from somewhere. Maybe from that gate video, maybe from FAA chatter, that her role in this went beyond protocol. Still, there was something in her posture as she passed 14D. The brief glance they exchanged that told me this was more than one person's ambition gone wrong. This was a network, and the network had just lost its point player in the cabin. As the plane surged down the runway, I held Emma's hand and kept my eyes forward. LaGuardia wasn't just the destination anymore. It was the battlefield where the rest of this would play out. And somewhere in the shadows of that plan, I could feel the next move forming. The seatbelt sign was on, the engines settling into their steady cruise hum when Jenna appeared at my side. Her movements were quick but not hurried. The kind of controlled urgency that comes from knowing how to walk a tightrope without looking like you're on one. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "I need to show you something. Now." I glanced at Emma, who was absorbed in drawing circles on the foggy window with her fingertip. 2 minutes, I told her. "Don't move." Jenna led me toward the forward galley, her tablet tucked close to her body. When we reached the narrow space behind the curtain, she angled the screen so I could see. "This is the live log from the crew operations portal," she said, scrolling through a list of entries marked in precise 24-hour timestamps. "Every time someone accesses or changes a passenger profile, it leaves a record here. Look at the last flag event." The row was highlighted in yellow. Passenger, Emma Carter. Action, add flag. UMNR unauthorized user ID, M. Harris, 784. My eyes narrowed. "Michael Harris?" Jenna nodded, her jaw tight. "That's the captain's personnel ID. According to this, he was the one who put the first red flag on your daughter's profile." The galley suddenly felt smaller. I kept my voice even. "When?" "Exactly 12 minutes before boarding, while he was still in the cockpit doing pre-flight checks." I straightened. "He says he didn't do this?" "I haven't told him yet," she admitted. "I wanted you to see it first, because there's something off. The access came from a ground terminal, not the cockpit interface." We both turned at the sound of the cockpit door opening. Michael stepped out, his expression neutral until he caught sight of the tablet in my hand. "What's going on?" he asked. Jenna didn't hesitate. "Captain, your user ID shows as the one that added the UMNR flag to Mr. Carter's daughter." For a heartbeat, he just stared. Then, quietly, "I didn't do that." "System says you did," Jenna replied. Michael stepped closer, studying the entry. "That's my ID, but not my location. I haven't logged into the ground terminal in over a month. Someone spoofed it." "Or stole your token," I said. He met my gaze, his mouth a flat line. "And only one person in operations has that kind of access without raising an alert." The name was already in my mind. "Victor Hale," I said. Michael's nod was almost imperceptible. "Every ground terminal login passes through HQ's security node. If my ID was used from there, it means someone in his office either did it or let it happen." "Can you pull the IP?" I asked Jenna. She tapped the screen, fingers quick. A new line of data appeared under the access record. Origin IP 10.245.61.19, NY Operations Center. That was enough confirmation for me. Michael exhaled sharply. Victor's been in his position long enough to know exactly what that means. And if the FAA sees this before he can bury it, he'll do everything to bury it, I finished for him. I took my phone from my pocket and opened a secure app my company used for rapid containment protocols. Emma's situation might have started on this plane, but now it had crossed into my territory. Data integrity, system security, and the forensic trail that could end careers. I typed a single line into the encrypted chat channel linked to my corporate cyber response team. Freeze partner interface. Preserve all transaction logs related to Skyline AirOps portal. User group Flight Ops Executive. Timestamp range 14 and present. The reply was instantaneous. Confirmed. Partner side interface locked. Logs duplicating to offsite vault. I slid the phone back into my jacket. Jenna's eyes flicked between us. "You just cut them off, didn't you?" "I just made sure the evidence doesn't vanish in the next 5 minutes," I said. Michael's jaw flexed. "If Victor knows you've locked him out, he'll panic. And a panicked man with that kind of access is dangerous," I finished. "I'm counting on it. The more noise he makes trying to get back in, the more fingerprints he leaves behind." The captain's gaze was steady now, the earlier unease tempered by something harder. "You're not just protecting your daughter anymore." "No," I said. "I'm protecting the record of what happened to her and who made it happen." A faint tremor ran through the deck as we hit a small pocket of turbulence, but the three of us stood in that narrow galley, locked in a quiet triangle of urgency. Somewhere behind us, Emma laughed at something she saw out the window, blissfully unaware of the shadow network unraveling in the data above and below us. And in the back of my mind, I knew this wasn't the last cliff we'd be standing on before we landed. The cabin lights brightened as the first hints of the skyline glinted through Emma's window. We were descending into LaGuardia. The shift in the engine's tone was almost a relief, proof that the long coil of tension wound through this flight was finally beginning to unspool. But when the wheels touched down, the relief was short-lived. I could see them from the moment we cleared the runway. Clusters of people behind the barricades, the white glare of portable lights, long lenses catching reflections in the glass. And beyond them, the Navy windbreakers and crisp suits of FAA officials and airport security, standing like sentinels. Emma's voice was small but curious. "Why are there so many cameras?" "Because people want to know what happened," I said. "And because some people want to make sure it doesn't happen again." The captain's voice came over the PA, formal and deliberate. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated until the seatbelt sign is off. Certain parties will be boarding the aircraft upon arrival for official purposes." The aircraft rolled to a stop at the gate. Before the door opened, a pair of FAA agents and 2 airport security officers stepped on board, their presence calm but unmistakable. The agents moved with a practiced efficiency, exchanging brief words with Michael before scanning the cabin. One of them nodded toward me, already knowing exactly where I sat. "Mr. Carter," the lead agent said, his tone courteous but firm. "We'd like to escort you and your daughter through the jet bridge. There's media outside. You're not obligated to speak, but if you do, keep it brief. We'll hold the perimeter." I stood, smoothing the front of my jacket, and glanced at Emma. "Ready to stretch your legs?" She nodded, clutching her backpack straps. The jet bridge was lined with security, their stance forming a human corridor between us and the bank of cameras beyond the gate's glass walls. Microphones bristled like antennae, voices calling my name, questions ricocheting through the din. I stopped just short of the threshold where their audio would be cleanest. The FAA agents flanked us, hands subtly raised to hold the crowd at bay. "Mr. Carter, can you comment?" someone shouted. I gave them 90 seconds, no more. "I'm not here to single out or punish any one person," I began, my voice steady over the hum of equipment. "My concern is systemic. If a child can be flagged, misidentified, and nearly removed from a flight despite proper documentation, that's not an individual's failing. That's a procedural one. Systems are only as strong as their safeguards, and today, those safeguards failed." The crowd leaned in, recorders thrust forward. "My focus," I continued, "is on ensuring this doesn't happen to another family. The process must change. The accountability must be structural. That's where my energy is going, starting tonight." I stepped back before the questions could swarm, letting the FAA agents move us forward. Behind me, voices clamored for follow-ups, but I didn't give them the opening. The story had enough oxygen already. I wasn't going to feed it flames. We were almost at the gate door when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I glanced at the screen and froze for a fraction of a second. The caller ID was the airline's CEO. I answered without breaking stride. "Carter." "Daniel," the voice said, taut with a mix of urgency and diplomacy. "The board wants to meet with you tonight, in person. No PR filters, no intermediaries. They're concerned." I didn't slow. "Where?" "Our Midtown office. We can send a car." "I'll come," I said. "But one condition." A pause. "Which is?" "Emma leaves here through a private exit," I said. "No cameras, no crowd. She goes straight home with someone I trust. This doesn't follow her past the jet bridge." There was the brief rustle of someone covering the receiver to speak to an aide. Then, "Done." We'll coordinate with FAA security now." I ended the call as we stepped through the final door. Ahead, another team of security was already moving to intercept the press surge at the terminal entrance. Behind them, a plainclothes woman with a soft smile and an FAA badge stepped forward, kneeling slightly to be at Emma's eye level. "Hi, Emma," she said. "I'm Claire. I'm going to walk you somewhere quiet while your dad finishes up. Sound good?" Emma glanced at me, waiting. "It's okay," I said. "Claire's a friend. I'll see you at home." Emma's arm tightened briefly around my waist before she let go, her small hand sliding into Claire's. They moved quickly down a side corridor, away from the noise and light. I watched until they turned the corner. Only then did I let my shoulders drop, the noise of the press wall behind me swelling again as security pushed them back. There was still the board meeting ahead, still Victor Hale and whatever network had enabled this, still the matter of evidence secured and leverage applied. But for now, the only thing that mattered was that Emma was safe, and that the people who thought they could erase her with a keystroke were now standing in the open, exposed under brighter lights than they'd ever expected. And I was walking straight toward them. The Midtown office's executive conference room was all glass, steel, and carefully chosen art, designed to project control without ostentation. Tonight, it felt more like a stage. The CEO of Skyline Air sat at the head of the table, flanked by the company's general counsel and a senior FAA representative. On the opposite side, I took my seat with my own independent legal advisor, a former federal mediator who knew how to navigate hostile territory in silk gloves. No cameras, no PR staff, just the principals. "Mr. Carter," the CEO began, his tone measured. "We appreciate you coming on such short notice. The events on Flight 4821 are troubling, to say the least. We want to resolve this constructively. That's why I'm here," I said, sliding a slim folder onto the table. "And why I'm not here to settle scores. This isn't about my daughter alone. It's about making sure your processes can't be used as a weapon again." I opened the folder and laid out a single-page document, 5 points, printed in clean, unambiguous language. "First," I said, tapping the top of the list, "mandatory bias awareness training for all frontline and operational staff with annual refreshers. Not a box-ticking seminar, a real program, vetted by external experts." The general counsel's pen twitched against his notepad, but he didn't speak. "Second," I continued, "a verify without humiliation protocol for minors. If there's doubt about a child's travel status, the process happens privately, away from other passengers, and without removing them from their guardian's presence unless legally necessary." The FAA representative nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "Third, transparent access logs for all passenger profile edits. Every keystroke tied to a verifiable user ID, with anomaly alerts sent to compliance in real time." My advisor leaned back, letting the weight of each point hang before I moved on. "Fourth, a dedicated hotline for vulnerable passengers, unaccompanied minors, elderly travelers, disabled passengers, staffed by trained advocates who can intervene during active incidents." The CEO's expression had shifted from guarded to considering. "And fifth," I said, "the creation of an independent ethics oversight board with the power to review complaints, audit incident handling, and recommend systemic changes. Its existence and its findings will be made public." The room was silent for a beat, the only sound the faint hum of the climate control. "These 5 measures," I concluded, "will be codified as an addendum to your existing service and safety contracts, specifically to the partnership agreement currently under negotiation with my company." The CEO steepled his fingers. "That's a significant set of commitments. They're also necessary," I said. The general counsel cleared his throat. "And if we agree to these terms, are you prepared to forego individual legal action related to this incident?" I held his gaze. "Yes. This isn't about one lawsuit. It's about closing the gap that allowed this to happen." He nodded, making a note. I could have stopped there. The leverage was already enough to secure what mattered. But I'd been thinking about Emma and the jet bridge. The way her eyes had scanned for me even when I was a few feet away. The way she'd trusted me to keep the worst parts of the day from following her home. "There's one more item," I said. The CEO's brow lifted. "Go on." "A 10-year scholarship fund," I said. "For children who dream of working in aviation. Pilots, engineers, crew. It will be named for your airline, not for me or my daughter. You'll fund it, administer it jointly with an independent foundation, and award it annually." The FAA representative's gaze sharpened. "Tying this to corporate social responsibility rather than personal restitution." "Exactly," I said. "This isn't about personal branding. It's about the next generation seeing this industry as safe and aspirational, not something to fear." The CEO glanced at his counsel, then back to me. "And you'd connect this to the same contractual framework?" "Yes. Written, enforceable, and reviewable by both parties annually." For the first time, the CEO's posture shifted forward. He extended his hand across the table. "Agreed." As our hands met, the FAA representative closed a leather folder with a soft thump. "In that case, the agency will consider this part of a monitored compliance program. We'll expect quarterly updates." The CEO inclined his head. "Understood." Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "Victor Hale has been summoned for an immediate internal review. He'll be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome." "And Nancy Doyle?" I asked. "She will have the right to appeal through our HR process," the CEO said. "Due process applies to everyone, even when the optics are difficult." I nodded. "Fair. The point is to fix the process, not weaponize it in the other direction." Somewhere behind the closed door, I could hear the low murmur of voices in the outer hall, staff waiting to move the paperwork forward, to turn spoken commitments into binding language. But in here, the air felt clearer. This wasn't victory in the dramatic sense. It was quieter, more deliberate. The kind of win that doesn't make headlines but rewires the system underneath them. And for me, for Emma, that was enough. The ferry cut a slow path across the harbor, its wake fanning out in soft ripples that caught the last light of the day. The sun was sinking low, washing the water in molten gold. Off to the starboard side, the Statue of Liberty stood in silhouette, her torch a bright point against the deepening sky. Emma leaned on the rail beside me, the wind teasing strands of her hair loose from the braid Claire had done for her before we left the terminal. She still had that look in her eyes, wide, searching. But now there was a curve to her lips that hadn't been there when we'd stepped off the plane. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I like the boat better than the airport." I can't argue with that. For a while, we just watched the statue draw closer, the ferry's engines a steady hum beneath our feet. The chaos of the last 12 hours felt distant here, like something happening in another city, another life. But I knew the headlines were already spreading. My phone, tucked into my jacket, had been buzzing on and off with notifications, media requests, messages from colleagues, even a note from AF confirming that the FAA's official investigation was already in motion. Emma slipped her small hand into mine. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "What happened today?" "It was because people didn't look right, wasn't it?" I crouched so we were eye level, the ferry's wind carrying the scent of salt water between us. "Yeah, sweetheart. Today was about how grown-ups can make mistakes when they don't look carefully, or when they let other things, fear, rules, even bad information, tell them what's true." She frowned slightly. "So, they were wrong?" "They were wrong," I said. "But the important part is they learned something. They learned to look again, to see better, and to make sure the rules help instead of hurt." She considered that for a moment, then nodded with the kind of gravity only an 8-year-old can muster. "Good." By the time we reached the pier, the sky had gone from gold to deep indigo, the first city lights flickering on along the waterfront. A car was waiting, arranged by the airline's logistics team, though I suspected the gesture had more to do with the CEO's promise to keep Emma out of the public eye than with courtesy. The news broke officially while we were still driving uptown. Skyline Air's board had voted to implement the 5-point reform package immediately, with quarterly public reports. Alongside it was the announcement of an internal investigation into the unauthorized data flags, specifically citing breaches traced to executive-level access. The FAA released its own statement an hour later, recommending industry-wide adoption of verify without humiliation protocols and enhanced data access logging for all carriers. They didn't name Victor Hale, but they didn't have to. Every outlet that called, texted, or emailed me got the same answer: no interviews. I wasn't interested in turning Emma's ordeal into a personal spotlight. The point was to fix the system, not to stand in the middle of it with a microphone. At home, Emma curled up on the couch with a blanket, her backpack still slung over one shoulder as if the day might demand another sudden departure. I made us cocoa and sat beside her, watching the steam curl in the lamplight. "You know," I said, "the thing about days like this is that they don't always end with applause or fireworks. Sometimes they just set a new standard, and then you live by it." She sipped her cocoa, eyes half-lidded. "Like, the rules change?" "Exactly. So next time something like this happens, not to us, but to someone else, the people in charge will know what to do, and they'll do it right." There was a long pause. She looked up at me, her expression lighter now, the lingering tension of the day finally softening into the quiet comfort of home. "Daddy?" "Yeah? Next time we fly, can I sit by the window?" I smiled, feeling the knot in my chest finally loosen. "Next time, and every time, you get the window." She grinned at that, the kind of grin that belongs entirely to the moment it's in, untouched by what came before. Later, when the house was still and Emma was asleep, I stood by the window and watched the city lights shimmer across the river. Somewhere out there, documents were being signed, systems recoded, and policies rewritten. Not because of noise or threats, but because the line had been drawn in a place it couldn't be moved back from. No headlines could capture that. No applause was necessary. The real victory was in the quiet. The knowledge that the next Emma, whoever she was, would board her flight without being turned into a suspect in her own seat. And that was enough.